Her hair was matted, her face streaked and swollen. One knee oozed slow blood. She'd cut it in a steel abutment. A stitching pain lived in her side. She ran. There was a high lover's moon, and the night was full of shapes. Shadows slid on shadows. When did she cross the river? Was it last night or the night before? Where was she now? She didn't know. Off to her right, she could see an unending length of metal mesh beyond a stretch of dead asphalt. Far out on the pavement sea was a cluster of teeter swings, an industrial nursery. It had to be Stoneham or Sunrise. Perhaps her baby was there? She veered to the left, away from the mesh, into the deep night black between buildings. Abruptly, she found her passage blocked by a high board barrier. She turned. Maybe she could double back over the river. If she could only rest. Wait! She froze, remained motionless. There was someone in the shadows ahead. A silent scream ripped at her throat. Sandman! Panic drove her heart against her chest in shuddering strokes. She spun about, clawed at the blistered boards, her fingernails breaking as she sought a grip on the coarse wood. The fence was too high. For an instant, a century, she hung there, trying to will her muscles to lift her oh-so-heavy body, but all the energy was gone. Something tore inside her, and she crumpled at the base of the wood. Huddled into herself, she studied the char-black flower crystal centered in the palm of her right hand. A few days ago, it had been a warm blood red, just as 7 years before it had been electric blue, and 7 years earlier, sun yellow. A color for each 7 years of her life. Now she was 21, and the flower was dull black, sleep black, death black. The figure moved calmly toward her, across the moon pavement. She didn't look up. She stared at her palm because her future and her past were written there. All of her days and her nights and her fears and her hopes. Why had she believed in sanctuary? Insane. Impossible. Why hadn't she been like all the others who had accepted sleep? Now the dark figure in black stood over her, but she did not look up. She didn't beg because begging was useless. Instead, she remade the world. She was not here, outlawed and condemned, shamed and terrified. She was in sanctuary, on a wide, wind-lazy meadow beside a cool stream of silver, a world in which time did not exist. Then why was her hand scrabbling under her torn clothing for the vibro knife she'd hidden there? Why the urgency to plumb the buzzing steel through breast and rib and into her heart? Why? She saw the gun come up. The Homer. She saw the moonlight dazzle off the dark blue barrel. The Homer. She saw the pale, tight-set face of the Sandman, and she saw his eyes above the gun as his fingers whitened on the trigger. The Homer. There was a soft explosion. That was the last thing she heard. And the last thing she felt was raw, blinding agony as the Homer struck, burned, ripped, and unraveled her. Logan was tired, but the little man kept talking. "You know how it is, citizen," he said. "Nobody feels like he's done it all. All the traveling, all the girls, all the living. I'm no different from anyone else. I'd like to live to be 25, 30, but it isn't going to happen. And I can accept that. I've got no regrets. None to linger on, I mean. I've lived a good life. I've had my share, and no one can say that Sawyer is a whiner." He was talking compulsively. As long as he talked, he didn't have to think. Logan had seen a lot of them on last day, talking away the final hours. "You know what I'm going to do?" asked the man, whose palm flower was blinking red and black, then red. He didn't wait for a reply. He went on in a rapid voice, telling Logan exactly what he was going to do. Logan had changed to grays back in Dia's headquarters, and he wondered if the man would be talking to him if he wore his black tunic. No doubt he would. Sawyer was obviously the type who went through life unworried about deep sleep men and guns, which was proper. He was a good citizen, and good citizens make a stable world. And then I'm going to go over to the Castlemont glass house and get myself 3 of the youngest, prettiest girls in the stag room. One will be blonde, with deep blue eyes and blue-white hair. Then I'll get one with short black hair and one with golden brown skin. 3 beauties. I hear they'll do anything for you on last day. The man looked at his palm. The flower bloomed red, then black, then red. Did you ever wonder if the thinker makes mistakes the same as people do? Because it doesn't seem like I've turned 21. It really doesn't. It seems like I turned 14 maybe 5 years ago. That would make me just 19. He said this without conviction. I remember the day when my flower changed and I was 14. I was in Japan. It was the first time I'd visited Fujiyama. Wonderful mountain, inspiring. You ever see it? Logan nodded. He'd seen it. I sure remember the day. Couldn't have been more than 5 years ago. Maybe 6. Do you think the machine could make that kind of mistake? Logan didn't want to remember how many years had passed since he'd been 14. Of late, he'd tried not to think about this. His flower was still a steady red. But